everybody.
Hello.
I assume you all know why you're here. Owls, cool things like that. Real quick welcome and introduction. My name's Scott Walter. I'm the executive director here at the Kickapoo Valley Reserve. And first comment I'll make, COVID be damned. A lot of work went into this. Little shout out to the staff here, our friends group, and all the volunteers that pulled today together. Even with COVID, outdoors, we can get together, we can learn together, we can have a good time. So welcome. Today we're about to engage with the wonderful world of owls, a talk called Night Moves, put on by Valley Raptors, Abbie and Joe behind me here. This is part of the Reserve's Driftless Dialogue series. Hand in the air if you've been to a Driftless Dialogue talk in the past. It's a series of enrichment educational offerings, one a month during the week that we host here on the Reserve. It's funded through the Ralph Nuzum Kickapoo Valley Reforestation Fund, supported by our friends group and the UW College of Ag and Life Science down in Madison. So not going to hold things up. I do have a little logistics though. Since it's supported by a grant, we need to track who attends. So if I'll just let this drift around as it does, but if you could put your name down, and if you'd like to be notified about upcoming talks, throw your email address down as well. Thank you. Abbie and Joe, go ahead.
My turn? Yeah, your turn, go.
All right, thank you everybody. Like you said, my name is Joe Kumrie. This is my wife Abbie, and of course Lila. She's been doing bird programs since she's been 0. So she's gonna do the talk one day, but we formed a company called Valley Raptors about 4 years ago. And we both worked at different bird organizations around the state, and we just loved the driftless area so much we came back, and there was really kind of a need for bird programs, and it was something we loved to do. So we went from having our first year we had 4 raptors and did a couple of programs. Now I have 17 raptors and do 50 to 60 programs a year. So it's really been an adventure for us, and this is our 4th time here at the Kickapoo Reserve at the Winterfest here, and apparently it's all owls today. That's news to me until I woke up from my nap in the truck on the way here.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Just kidding. But we have everything from owls, eagles, falcons, hawks, everything at home. And we're located in Buffalo City, Wisconsin, which is about 2 hours from here. But we do give private tours. So if you find yourself venturing up and down the river during the summertime or whatever, make sure to look us up and come. You can book a private tour to see our whole team of raptors there at the house. So we've been throwing this word around, this word raptor, right? And we have to learn a little bit more about what makes a raptor before we can actually get into owls specifically, right? Because owls are a group of that raptor thing. And there are 4 main types of raptors, owls being one of them. What are the other 3 types? Eagles, falcons, and hawks. So hawks, eagles, falcons, and owls are the 4 main groups of raptors. Out of all the birds, they're grouped into that raptor bird. So the first bird I'm actually going to get out is going to be a type of hawk. Does anybody know any types of hawks? We have 7 different types we can find in Wisconsin. A red-tailed hawk, very good. A Cooper's hawk. Sharpshin. A sparrowhawk is one of them like colloquial names for other things. Sharpshins and Cooper's hawks get the sparrow's hawk name. Any other birds? Any other hawks you know of? A red shoulder. A chicken hawk is a colloquial name for a red tail. Yep. Red-shouldered hawk. A white-headed hawk. Marsh hawk is a northern harrier. another name for a northern harrier, which is a different little shoot off of raptors. A lot of people say Seahawks. That's not a thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out this girl, and you guys are gonna see what type. We're gonna see if you know what type of bird she is. So this bird's name is Maize. Does anybody know what type of hawk she is? I'll give you a guess if I turn her this way. Does that help? She is a red-tailed hawk. So you see, she gets the name red-tailed hawk by this beautiful red, kind of rusty brown, rusty orange colored tail that she has. That's exactly where they get their name from. Oh, let go. You're kind of grippy here. So there's three main things that make raptors raptors. If you think about all the birds out there, think about chickadees and robins and blue jays and other things you see at your bird feeder. There's three things that raptors have that chickadee or that blue jay does not have. Three things that sets them apart. What are those three? What's one of the three things? Talons. Look what she's doing now. Those are the main things that set her apart from all the other birds. Talons are what makes a raptor, right? So those strong, sharp, gripping, grasping toes. That's how they capture their prey. Now, what do we think a bird this size is going to be eating? What is she going to be hunting out in the wild? Mice. Yep. 80%, over 80% of a red-tailed hawk's diet is small mice and small mammals. But what else can she go after? Mice and shrews, yep. Snakes, she loves to eat snakes. Other birds, I heard, she will eat other birds. Rabbits. The only thing she won't eat is fish. She will eat insects. Won't eat berries. They're 100% carnivorous. All they eat is meat. Yep. Frogs. They'll eat carrion, yep. They'll eat dead deer on the side of the road too. So this wide varied diet that you hear, everything from snakes and frogs to mice and rabbits and squirrels, dead things, that's why they're so successful. That's why they're such a common species. Red-tailed hawks nest from anywhere from a desert to downtown Chicago. They nest anywhere in between, and especially here in the driftless woodland area, they are our most common species. If you see a hawk sitting on a telephone pole, there's a really, really good chance that it's a red-tailed hawk. Okay? So that's one of the attributes, the strong gripping, grasping feet, how they capture their food. What's another thing that makes them different? Her beak. What about her beak? It has a downward curve to it, right? So her beak is like a meat hook. And that's exactly how she uses her beak, is a meat hook. So say she catches a mouse, right? How's she gonna eat that mouse? Well, a mouse she's probably gonna swallow whole. But what if she catches a rabbit? Or she catches a pigeon? She can't swallow a pigeon whole, can she? No. So she has to rip and tear that animal apart, and that's exactly what that beak is used for. That beak is used to hook into her food and rip and tear smaller pieces off. Birds do not have teeth, so they cannot chew anything. So she has to rip and tear pieces small enough where she can swallow them whole. So that's the second thing. So strong gripping, grasping feet, a downward curved beak. What's the third thing that sets her apart? Their eyes. What about their eyes? Yeah, it's how good they can see and the type of eyesight they have that really sets her apart. She has an eyesight that's 7 to 10 times better than a human's. So it's been said that if they could read a newspaper over a football field length away. Now some of us have trouble reading a newspaper at a couple of feet. She can read it over a football field length away. Now, it's not that she has that excellent eyesight, right? She's got powerful eyesight. She can see things a long way away. It's the way she can see it. You know, think of her sitting on top of a telephone pole or sitting up in a tree branch. And she can definitely see mice on the ground. That's not that far. We can see a mouse on the ground from the top of a telephone pole. But she can count the whiskers on that mouse on the top of a telephone pole. She's watching HD television all the time. Her vision's just that much more crisp and that much more clear than ours. That's what makes him such a successful predator. So those are the three things that make raptors raptors. And owls, the same thing we're going to get into, have all those three attributes. Look at them when we get the owls out. So strong gripping, grasping feet, a downward curved beak, and amazing eyesight. Okay? So a little more about this bird before we get out our main attraction. Maize here is actually one of our falconer birds. She's one of our hunting birds. So me and Abbie both are licensed falconers. So she has caught rabbits and caught squirrels for us. This is her second year or second season hunting with us. And she was trapped from the wild, and then we trained her, and she's been with us since she's been about 8 months old. So, friendly's a loose term, you want to say. Yeah. Yep. She trusts us and she knows us, and she definitely, we can put her up in a tree and she'll come back to us, but she's still a wild animal. If you think about cattle, think about dogs. Over the thousands of years we've been working with them, we've been able to domesticate them. People have been working with raptors for over 4,000 years, and there is no domestication in raptors. So that just goes to show you how wild and how raw these animals actually are. So I'm going to go ahead and put this bird away. I'm going to kick it over to Abbie, and she's going to get on with the rest of the show.
One last thing I want to mention about Maize as he puts her away is she was trapped from the wild, and she'll actually go back to the wild. So we'll hunt this winter, excuse me, and we may hunt one more season after this, and then I'll let her go, and she'll be free, and she obviously won't have lost any of her hunting skills because we've been hunting this whole time. In fact, she'll have gained hunting skills and be that much better of a hunter when she goes back out to the wild. There's no dependency on us. It's very much a teamwork that we have, where she finds that when we hunt together, she tends to be more successful. So, but on to our next birds. We really debated as to whether we were going to bring all owls or if we were going to decide to bring a hawk instead. And the reason for that is just because owls, even though they're raptors, because they're nocturnal, they hunt during the night or also crepuscular, meaning they hunt at dusk and dawn. They just have so many different adaptations. So to truly see that difference, we thought, getting a hawk out first to see what a typical raptor looks like, and then getting out the owl would really show some of those differences. So before I get out our owl, though, a couple things that are going to be a little harder to see, unless you can kind of see them here, is the first one adaptation they have is going to be in their eyesight. So I have an owl skull and a hawk skull. So as I kind of walk around here, take a look at the eye sockets of the owl skull. So you can see that the owl has much bigger eye sockets. So I don't know if Joe mentioned how big a raptor's eyes are, but typically they're about the size of their brain. Owls' eyes are actually larger than their brains. In fact, if we were to have the same size eyes as an owl in comparison to our body, our eyes would be the size of our fist. So imagine putting your fist up to your head. That's how big your eyes would be if you were an owl. So they have these special bony plates to help hold those eyes and support those eyes. So if everybody puts their hands up like binoculars, and if everybody looks up at the sky, then looks down at the ground, and then looks back up at me. And now if you take your hands away without moving your heads, can you look up at the sky and down at the ground and maybe look on either side of you? Yeah, so we have muscles behind our eyes that allow our eyes to move. Raptors' eyes are so big, there's no room for muscles. So they have to have these really flexible necks. So hawks, eagles, and falcons can turn their heads 180 degrees and look directly behind their backs. If we turn, if you can get over your shoulder from front to shoulder, that's only 90 degrees. And the hawks, eagles, and falcons are looking behind their backs. But owls, they can go even a step further. They can go over their shoulder, behind their backs, and they can keep going and look over their other shoulder at 270 degrees. Not quite all the way around, but pretty close. Another big difference we're going to see with owls is going to be in their feet. So I have a hawk foot and a snowy owl foot. What's on the snowy owl foot? Looks like fur, doesn't it? But owls, what do all birds have? Feathers, yeah, so they have these special feathers that actually look like fur. Individual tiny feathers all the way down to their toes. Now, the reason for that is, when do owls hunt? At night. So it's much colder at night than it is during the day. Not to mention, most of the owls that we have in this area can stay here year round. So in the winter time, this is also going to protect their feet. Now, I love to use the snowy owl as an example, because where does the snowy owl live? In the Arctic, yeah, where there's snow a lot of the time. So these feathers can actually act like snowshoes, allowing the owl to actually stay on top of the snow if needed. Now the last difference is going to be in their feathers. You guys ever heard owls have silent flight? Yeah, so the reason actually is the way their feathers designed. I have a hawk feather here that's kind of smooth on top, smooth on bottom, and a little bit stiffer. And if I make noise, or if I flap it here, you guys in the front might be able to hear it make some noise. Now, the owl feather is smooth on top, but the bottom is actually fringed or sort of serrated. And the feather itself is very, very soft. So I'm not even going to bother walking around, because you're not going to be able to really hear this one. But for those of you a little farther away, I'll see if I can get this thing moving. I've got what acts as my hawk feather. Smooth on top, smooth on bottom, a little bit stiffer. And if I can get it spinning. You can hear a lot better. And if you watch it, you can see the feather itself, or the stick, because it's stiff, kind of vibrates and moves. But all we had to do is put burlap on it to give it that fringed and softer feel. And it doesn't matter how hard I spin this one, it's not going to make that same noise, because it's not going to vibrate like the other one. All right. We've got 11 different species of owls right here in Wisconsin. Do you guys know any species?
Snowy owl.
Snowy owl. Barred and barn. I heard both of those. Screech owl.
We have barred owls by our house.
Very cool. What was that?
Great horn.
Great horn. Great horned owl. That's actually the owl we were debating between the hawk and the owl. Cash, our great horn, has always come with us to this program. So we're like, do we bring him again, or do we bring something different? So, great gray. That's where you guys got half. Saw-whet. Oh, don't push it, honey. Tawnies are not in Wisconsin, but that is an owl you can find in the U.S.
Snowies.
Yeah, we said snowy. We're missing, along with the great gray, there's a couple more of those boreal owls. The boreal owl. The northern hawk owl. And then we've got a long-eared owl, and what's the opposite of long-eared? Short-eared owl. So those are 11 you can find here. Now, of those 11, one of those was actually considered extirpated from the state, meaning they were no longer found here. And then, about a few months ago, a fledgling came into a rehab center in La Crosse. Does anybody know what species I'm talking about? Which one? The barn owl. So I think, since 1993, I want to say it was the first known nesting barn owl here in Wisconsin. So, pretty exciting news. So that's why I'm really excited to bring our barn owl.
They're so pretty.
This here is Sophie. So as we take a look at Sophie, you can see she's got those talons that make her a raptor. She's got that curved beak, although it might be hard to see with all those feathers on her face.
And her head twisted.
She's got those large eyes. She's got a head that turns quite a bit. What else do you guys notice about her? What are some observations you see? Yeah. She has a ring around her face. Yeah, that's called her facial disc. And that actually helps her to hear. So we talk about how good an owl's eyesight is and how good raptors' eyesight is, but owls are hunting at night. And that eyesight doesn't necessarily give them that great a vision at night. They still have pretty normal vision. So they actually rely more on their hearing. So if you guys were to cup your ears, you're going to notice that my voice gets louder. And that's because when you cup your ears, you're funneling sound to those ears. Kind of like a giant satellite dish. That's exactly what her facial disc does. It's collecting sound and sending it to her ears. Now you can't see her ears. They're actually covered by her feathers. But I do need a volunteer if they want to come on up here. Yeah, I saw your hand first. All right, what's your name?
Natalia.
Natalia. All right, Natalia, can you do me a favor and point to your ears for me? Just one? Two. All right, there we go. So Natalia shows we have one ear. Put your fingers back up. One ear right across from the other. We call this symmetrical hearing. Now, looking at her, where do you think her ears are? Point on your head. You think maybe they're higher? Yeah, so put your fingers up. So I'll give you a hint. This one is correct, but we're going to move this one all the way down here. Owls have asymmetrical hearing, where they have an ear up high, facing forward, and an ear down low, facing backwards. Thanks, Natalia. You can have a seat. So by having these kind of misplaced ears, it allows them to do something called triangulation. So if you're ever watching an owl, either in the wild or on TV, and you kind of start seeing them bob in their head, what they're doing is they're using that facial disc to collect that sound. And they're sending that sound to their ears, and they're finding different points. And so when they make that triangle, they can actually find their prey just by hearing it. They don't even have to see it. Now, barn owls actually have the best hearing out of any animal that has ever been tested. Their hearing is so good, they can hear that tiny mouse running under 2 feet of snow. Figure out where that mouse is, crash the snow, grab it with their feet without ever having to see it, just by hearing it. So amazing hearing. What else do you guys observe about her that might be different? Yeah.
She has dots on her.
She has dots on her. Yeah, spots. So you'll find when you're looking at owls, they tend to have a lot more camouflage than some of the diurnal or daytime raptors. And that's because if they're hunting at night, during the day, they're going to be resting. And so they're going to want to stay camouflaged in whatever area they tend to nest in. So if we, or tend to rest in, excuse me. So if we take a look at her back, what colors does she have on her back?
Gray and brown.
Yeah, kind of gray, brown, golden. What was that? Did someone say what kind of colors?
Bark colors.
Bark colors. Yeah, maybe bark colors. Or these guys, they get the name barn owl because they nest in barns. What tends to be right next to barns?
Wood.
Big open fields, like hay, that's right. And so these guys are going to be hunting over these open fields, and that coloring is going to help her camouflage if she does hunt when it's light out. What else do you guys notice about her? Yeah. Yeah, she has a long nose. She's got a lot of feathers right above her beak, doesn't she? That just helps with that hearing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're very stiff, too. Yeah. She has a heart-shaped face. Yeah, next time you guys are out this spring or summer and you find maybe walnuts on the ground that are cracked open, look inside that walnut and see if you can find a barn owl face. Anyone else?
Me.
Yeah.
I noticed that she kind of has some stripes.
Some stripes?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got very unique coloring, doesn't she? Now, she doesn't have feathers quite as thick down to her toes just because this is about the most northern area of their habitat. And then they tend to be a little bit more southern, so she doesn't need quite as many feathers to protect those feet. What color are her eyes?
Like brown.
They look black, don't they? They're dark brown. Now, here in Wisconsin, barn owls and barred owls are the only 2 owls that have the brown eyes. All the rest have yellow. Now, there's some theories that say that the color of their eyes actually suggests when owls are most active. So the owls that have the darkest eyes are most active in the middle of the night. And the owls with the yellow eyes tend to be more crepuscular, meaning you're going to see them most active right as the sun is setting or right as the sun is rising. Now, last thing about barn owls, actually my favorite thing about barn owls, is these guys are actually the cause of a lot of ghost stories. So, what noise do owls make? Woo-hoo, yeah! Do you guys know what sound a barn owl makes?
They make like a screeching noise.
Yeah, they don't hoot. They scream. In fact, they sound just like a woman screaming. So imagine hundreds of years ago, you're a farmer and you're just finishing up for the night and you're in your barn, it's getting dark out, and you hear that screaming noise. And then you look up and something white just floats over your head making no noise. They thought their barns were haunted. And so they actually did cause people to think that they had a haunted barn, there was ghosts. So we can actually blame a lot of those ghost stories right here on the barn owl. So I've got one more owl to show you. Did you want to keep her out, or is Lila too cold?
She's cold.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put Sophie away.
She's cute. So cute. No. Will this owl be a little littler? Is it the bigger box or the little box?
That's the little box.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little tiny. It's probably gonna look very cute.
This is not a baby owl, but it is the smallest owl that you will find in Wisconsin.
Oh, I thought you was talking about
Smaller than a screech owl.
the red tail.
Oh, it's so tiny.
This is Winnie.
She's so tiny.
And Winnie is a northern saw-whet owl.
I wanna hold her. I wanna pet her.
Winnie also lives inside the house this winter, so we'll see how long we can keep her out for. She might get a little cold and she might not be able to stay out too long. But Winnie here is almost 9 months old.
Aw, she's so tiny.
And I actually know that because Winnie hatched right at our facility at River Valley Raptors. So along with the owls having kind of these different characteristics and these different adaptations, they've also done kind of some studies on owls in captivity. And they're finding that adult owls that get injured in the wild, go into a rehab center, and can no longer be released, have a very hard time adapting to life in captivity. So being around people all the time just tends to be a little too much for them because this is a nocturnal animal. But they found that owls that either get injured as babies or get hatched in captivity and raised by humans, we call that a human imprint, are just fine. And they actually did, the way they did the study was they tested cortisol levels. So they tested the amount of stress that the owls had in captivity. So as part of one of the organizations we're a part of, where we're constantly learning, the best ways to keep these raptors in our care, it's called the International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators. They're the ones that did this study, and Joe and I are constantly making sure that the welfare of our birds is our top priority. So when we discovered this information, we had a saw-whet owl that we had gotten from a rehab center that wasn't adapting to programs. You could tell he was very nervous. And so we decided to apply for a propagation permit and look for a female that also was the kind of same situation where she was injured as an adult and couldn't be released. And so 2 years ago, a female came into a rehab center. We were able to acquire her, and we introduced them 2 winters ago. And last spring, we were fortunate enough that they blessed us with 2 baby owls. So at about a week old, we were able to take those babies out and hand raise them so that they would be used to people. And we were able to keep one, and we actually sent the other one all the way to Oregon to the Cascades Raptor Center. So her sister As they were Francis and Darwin when they hatched, because we pulled them on Earth Day was the day they got to come live with us. She is now Maple, is her new name, and Darwin is now called Winnie because Darwin is way too big to be a male owl. So in the raptor world, females are actually bigger.
So males are smaller than that?
Males are smaller than that, yep. She's actually a large female. So she's on the heavy side.
She looks like she's like that couldn't be the biggest one.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? So I'm gonna walk her around a little bit so you guys can see her a little better. So these guys are cavity nesters. And when these guys hoot, they actually do a hoo, 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 hoo. I've actually had people who've had a sow in their tree for a couple days, and they said for the first couple days they kept thinking there was a truck backing up. And then finally, like, they just kept hearing it, and then they finally located the little tiny sowet up in their tree. Now Winnie's mom and dad, over the last 2 weeks, have actually started sitting by each other again. During the summer, they had their preferred perches. They kind of stayed in their own little area. But now we're kind of getting to the courting season, and every day I go in there to feed. They're sitting right next to each other, just sort of hanging out.
This is cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Got her. There's sawwets around.
Yeah, so there are sawwets in this area. Actually, a lot of the nature centers, like in Stevens Point in that area, will do sawwet owl banding because there's a big migration of these guys in the fall where the sawwets are flying through, and they'll try to band them.
Wow, that's cool to see that so close.
These folks from the owl center we're in.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, probably so.
What do they eat?
So in the wild, these guys would eat the insects, mice, voles, mostly small rodents and insects. At our facility, we do rabbit, squirrel, quail, mice, rat, chipmunk. We get donated deer hearts in the during hunting season. So yeah, we try to give them as much of whole food as we can. Good, I'm so glad. There are wings if you want to see what an owl feather feels like compared to a hawk feather. You can feel the difference and feel how soft an owl is, since they are a lot softer compared to the other raptors. So.
Yeah. Cool. That'd be a big load. Yeah.
Look at how
That's awesome. There's one that sits in this valley, and it
Lila helped raise her.
gazes just at this huge field and this.
How lucky were you?
And I could tell it
Hey, I'm gonna take her back with me, Lila.
the whole perimeter. Yeah, it's just awesome to see it.
All right. Okay, here you go.
I
There you
was
go.
wondering, actually, it was a really frosty morning with all kinds of, like a hoarfrost or whatever. It's really glossy with the sun.
What kind of owl is it?
This is a sawwet owl, northern sawwet owl.
And how old is that?
She's about 9 months, but she's full grown. She
She's
won't get any
full-grown.
bigger than
Eyesight
this. Yeah,
is definitely geared towards
How big is she when
movement.
she's born?
about that big.
Have you ever heard of St. Patrick's Day?
St. Patrick's Day?
No?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a great one.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put her
solid-
away soon.
solid
I think
egg.
she's getting cold.
Tiny it is.
Big.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wonderful. Hey, Joe.
Hey,
Cool. That's great. Wow.
I was wondering if I was gonna see you. I was
go
like, I
check out
feel
some
like
more
we always
stuff.
see you at Kickapoo.
Yeah, of course. I saw owls and I figured it was going to be you and Joe here.
I know. I feel like it's so long.
And I see you right so
How about we put these back?
Lila. Put those right inside your mittens.
Yeah.
So that one's a girl. What's the name?
Winnie. We just shortened Darwin to Winnie because she's very much a girl.
I didn't remember
When
what
you take it out hunting, what is it you're, what's it bringing back for?
Well, we're hunting squirrels and rabbits, our two main game.
And then you can